Okay. Let's continue on down here to scenario 7. Warren and Shirley Graves, married, want to file a joint return. She has a 1099-R showing $33,600 of gross distribution in box 1, $32,520 of taxable distribution in box 2, and no federal withholding. They have a 1099 div that shows $270 of ordinary and $180 of qualified dividends. They also received $9 of interest income, but the bank didn't send a 1099 INT because it was less than $10. Warren has a 1099 SSA showing how much Social Security he received at $15,000, and he had federal withholding of $1050 out of that. And they tell us when Warren and Shirley was born. And so the questions that were being asked are whether or not Social Security is partially taxable, how much is their standard deduction, what's the correct amount, what is the correct amount of the taxable interest for line 2B of Form 1040. Okay, so these are all things we've worked on in class. So the Social Security income, is it partially taxable? To do that, we're going to have to fill out a Social Security benefits worksheet, and we have done that before. Here's our Social Security benefits worksheet from our 1040 instruction booklet. Okay, so you would have to fill this out, and what it's asking is Social Security partially taxable. Okay, so if you put the stuff in here and Social Security is not taxable, then your answer would be no. If it's Social Security can be 50% taxable or 85% taxable, so those would be partially taxable. Never is Social Security fully taxable. So here's your box 5 from your SSA 1099. So that's how much Social Security that Warren got. Multiply it by 50% for line 2. It wants all these from 1, 2B, 3B, 4B, etc. So on a 1040 form, you can look and see what those are, but that's basically wages, interest, dividends, other pension amounts, taxable part of pensions, and various other incomes. Okay? And also, if there was unemployment, they have special rules for that. Okay? Also, it says line 4, enter the amount from line 2A. Line 2A of our tax return. Okay, line 2A, tax-exempt interest. So that would be municipal bond interest is tax-exempt. So if we take a look, did they have any of that? They had pension. That's a 1099-R. It's what you get with pension. You have that in your project part 2. You'll have some of that. Dividends, they have ordinary dividends. That goes on 3B. Qualified dividends goes on line 3A. They did receive $9 of regular interest. Okay, and the Social Security. There doesn't say anything about interest from a city or a state. That would be municipal bond interest. So you wouldn't have any of that. Now, you do have to determine on taxable interest whether that $9 is taxable or not. And we covered that in Chapter 2 of your book. Which things are taxable and which things aren't taxable. Is something not taxable just because it's not on a 1099? Okay, so you can look that up in Chapter 2. And line 3, qualified dividends go on 3A. Ordinary dividends that are taxable go on line 3B. So that Social Security worksheet is, once you have those numbers, it's asking you to fill that out. Here's the pension. 5A goes whatever's in box 1 of the 1099-R, and the taxable amount goes on line 5B. That came from box 2 of the, so here we have box 1 is 33,600, so that would go under 5A, line 5A, and 32,520 goes in box, from box 2 goes in line 5B. Okay, and so we talked about the dividends and where they go. You'll look up the interest income and see if you need to put it there. And then you should be able to finish filling out the Social Security worksheet. So once you get those few numbers in there, then line 5 is, you add those up, and then you subtract out any adjustments. They didn't appear to have any adjustments. And so line 7, you get an amount. Okay, or in line 8. So line 8, if they're married filing joint, they would put 32,000 in there. And then you follow these rules for line 9 and get something. Line 10, you enter 12,000 if married filing joint, that's them, and then you subtract line 10 from 9. From then on down, you just follow those instructions right on the worksheet, and you'll see if any of their Social Security is taxable. Okay, there's standard deduction. So their standard deduction is right on the 1040. Okay, they're married filing joint, 24,800. However, up here, you had to fill out, was Warren born before January 2nd, 1956? Was he blind? Was the spouse born before January 2nd, 1956? Is the spouse blind? Okay, and so in that case, you see if they are over 65 years old or blind, they get extra standard deduction. And so if you take a look at that, okay, here's a standard deduction worksheet for dependents. Okay, here's standard deduction chart for people who were born before January 2nd, 1956 or were blind. Okay, so they're married filing joint. There's, you know, how many boxes did you fill out here, and that tells you right there how much their standard deduction is. Okay. Number 8. Ashley is legally married, but Nicholas moved out of the house and left the family in April. This should say of well, I guess it doesn't matter, 2019. So all of 2020, Ashley is still legally married, but her husband is gone. So we talked about that back in part 1 of these scenario videos. Okay, so you need to look up and see what kind of filing status that allows. Ashley provided the entire cost of maintaining the house, the support for her 3 children, does not want to file jointly with Nicholas, he's long gone. She was born in 1973, so she's less than 65 years old. Talks about her children and what ages they are. They're all in school, none of them made any money. She has 2 W-2s, and it shows how much she made for those. She also has a 1099-G showing unemployment benefits. Received a $4,000, and she has $700 of federal withholding. She also has 1099 INT with $200 of interest income, $20 of early withdrawal penalty. That should ring some bells for you as to what that is. She has a receipt for daycare indicating $700 was paid for Emily, $500 for Grayson. Okay, so we know from part 1 of the videos how to figure out her filing status. You need to take a look at adjustments. What I would do is look on Schedule 1 in the adjustment section and see if any of those apply to her. Okay, how much credit does she get on Form 2441? That's the daycare credit. The best way to figure this out is to pull up a 2441 and fill it out. Also, you should look, we looked in part 2 of the scenario videos at if she qualifies and what is the age of the children, etc., that needs to be for her to use the daycare credit. Okay, and so I would look in your book, Chapter 7, at those rules, and if she qualifies, I would pull up a 2441 form off the IRS website and actually fill it out, and you'll get that number. Can Ashley get the child tax credit? We talked about that. And for which children? We talked about that in part 2 of the scenarios videos. Okay, there's the child tax credit. It's $2,000 for children under 17 that are qualifying child dependents, and there's a credit of $500 for the kids that are 17 or over, or for qualifying relative dependents. Okay, what is the amount of her earned income credit? Okay, so in part 2 of the scenarios, we went over earned income credit. Does Ashley herself qualify? Do her children qualify her to get earned income credit? And then this one is asking the amount. Now, in the IRS instruction booklet, this is the best way to figure out the amount. To go to this worksheet A here, and this is on page 46, and you fill this out. Once you determine that Ashley qualifies and how many of her children qualify for her to get earned income credit, then you go through and fill out this worksheet A, and that will tell you how much. Now, you are going to have to know her AGI. That's line 11 on the tax return is AGI. You're going to have to know that number. So you'll have to figure that out from her information. All this information, how much was her income minus her adjustments, is her AGI. Okay, before you can fill that out.